everybody, how's it going? It's been a minute since I've done a video, and I thought, well, Father's Day is coming up. We got to do a video. This is going to be my first Father's Day without my father. So I'm going to try to get through this one. And I just thought, how could I pay homage to my father? Because my love of music was given to me at the most youngest of ages. And I grew up with that. And it was instilled into me by my parents, my mother and my father. So how do I honor my dad on Father's Day? There are thousands of songs that we could go through and talk about. So what do we do? So I'll mention one thing. I remember my first favorite song, like the first song that was my favorite song, was American Pie by Don McLean. It came out in 1970. Now, I don't know if I remember it from 1970. I would have been like, 3. But I remember it being my first favorite song, driving the Chevy to the levee. So cars and music at that young of an age. Yep. I remember thinking my dad looked like Buddy Holly. I remember that, and he was as cool as Elvis. That's just some of my earliest memories of my dad. So how do we pay homage to Dad on this Father's Day on this channel? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Christian rock music. I got my Larry Norman shirt on today. I brought this out of the archives. This shirt is ancient. It hardly fits. I'm having a hard time breathing. But I had to wear it for the show today because it's just such a cool shirt. Rock the Flock, Larry Norman. He was always so genius in some of the things that he put together. And you see over my shoulder a Larry Norman poster for a concert he did that I found behind a door in the very first house that I ever sold when I got my real estate license. They were moved out, they were gone, we were closed, and I was there, and it was behind the door, and I kept that thing. And it's one of my, I wasn't at that concert. I think that's actually way out west. I don't know exactly where that concert's from, that poster's for, but it's signed, and how cool is that? So we're going to talk a little bit, not just about Larry Norman tonight, but about Christian rock music, and we're going to do it to honor Dad and to say Happy Father's Day. Okay, so you may be wondering why I'm showing you a stack of records that are sitting on the floor that are not put away. Well, for a very special reason. Those records have been sitting there since January. These records are the records that I took over to my dad's on the Friday before he passed away. He invited us over. He called up. He's like, I want you guys to come over. I want to listen to some Christian rock music. I want to hang out with you, maybe study a little bit, and just be with you. And so let me rephrase that. Actually, he said he was going to come over, and we were going to do that. And because all the records are here. And I thought, I said, yeah, Dad, And then he texted me a few minutes later. He's like, hey, if this weekend's too soon, we don't have to do it, because, he had just texted me. It was like Thursday, and he wants to come over this weekend. And he texts me back. He's like, hey, I didn't mean to be pushy. If this weekend's too soon, we don't have to. I'm like, no, Dad, we're going to make this happen. But I'm going to come to you because he didn't need to be out. He just gotten out of the hospital having had his heart attack. And, he was still recovering. So we're going to come to you. So I grab 20 records, I think was the number that I picked. I don't remember exactly, but those are the ones that I just showed you. And I took him over to his house, and I figured that, he could pick from those, and that's what we listened to. So that's why those records are on the floor. And they've been sitting there ever since. That night. So we're going to do the flip, and I'm going to show you the records that I took over that night. We had DeGarmo Key, Missions of Mercy, Elvis, How Great Thou Art, Randy Stonehill's The Sky is Falling, Larry Norman, Only Visiting This Planet, Steve Camp, It's a Dying World, Daryl Mansfield, Revelation, Dion, Inside Job, David and the Giants, Riders in the Sky, Larry Norman again, Something New Under the Sun, Petra, Not of This World, Petra, More Power to Ya, Steve Taylor, Meltdown, Randy Stonehill, Welcome to Paradise, Mark Hurd, Victims of the Age, Bob Dylan, Slow Train Coming, DeGarmo and Key, the D&K label, or the D&K album, Larry Norman, In Another Land, Daniel Amos, Horrendous Disc, Daryl Mansfield Band, The Vision, Malcolm and Alwyn with Wild Wall, and Mylon Lefevre with Sheep and Wolves Clothing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of these records. Some of them we're going to spend a little bit more time on than the other. But we're going to talk about Dad. I'm going to talk about the Christian rock. If you follow this channel at all, when I first started the channel, I mentioned a couple of times that We're going to get into some Christian rock. So I'm going to explain it to you today. I'm not going to preach at you. So don't turn this thing off. Think, just because I use the word Christian, don't be that guy and close your mind. If you're going to close your mind, how many things are you going to close your mind to? There's so much life out there. We close our minds to so much of it. I'm not going to preach at you. I'm just going to share stories with you, and we're going to talk about good music. Some of this music is exceptional music if you just get past the Christian label. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that from both sides of the fence. So hang with me, and here we go. So my dad was an ordained preacher, and he was also a little bit of an outlaw. Let's just say it that way. So he's a preacher, and I was raised in church mostly, not in my young years, but most of my formidable years, preteen, teen, up until adulthood. He actually married my wife and I. He was the master of ceremonies, the preacher for my wife and I's wedding, and that's pretty cool. And so he was an ordained preacher, and he was in some churches, and he had a pretty big ministry that he was involved in. He was on the radio and TV, and he's involved in one of the biggest churches in the Metro Detroit area. So he kind of knew people. So he knew a lot of religious people too, and these people they'd put down the rock and roll, but they'd also put down the Christian rock and roll. So I grew up in a time where you become a Christian, you took your records and you burned them in the barrel at church. As you can see behind me, we didn't do that. And there were some records that, Dad's like, yeah, we probably need to throw these away. But for the most part, like 99.5% of it, yeah, we didn't do that. So then there's Christian rock music, okay? And this was something that the religious people also put down. Well, it's not the words, it's the beat. How can a beat be wrong? Think about this for a minute. A beat, it's kind of like a computer. People say, well, a computer is just all evil. No, a computer is an inanimate object that sits on your desk and collects dust unless you do something with it. It's what you do with it that makes it good or bad. What are you going to use it for? And but they would say that about the music. And my dad stood up to him, and he's like, no, that's not what the Bible teaches. The whole book of Psalms, the biggest book of the Bible, is nothing but songs. And not all those songs were praise songs. Well, we call them praise songs back then. Today it's worship. The record labels figured out how to use the word worship as a marketing tool and sell it to churches because they weren't selling to individuals because streaming came along. So, whole nother video. We won't get into all that right now. But, not all of the Psalms are that way. Some of them are sad songs. Some of them are lamentations. Some of them are war songs, getting ready to go to war. Some of them are strike down my enemies. Some of them are celebration songs. Some of them are just songs about music and, make noise and make joyful noises and sing noises, so many different topics. And my dad used to always use the argument that the Psalms were the most contemporary, it's the top 100 charts of the day in David's day. He was renowned for his music, and and some preachers got it and most did not, but Dad stood up for us, and he let it be known that he really felt that they were wrong, and they really couldn't show a scripture to where they were right. They were just kind of getting all hung up on themselves and their religion. And I thank God for that because, well, religion's, man, it's just a drag. Religion is, I would rather talk to the worst sinner in the world than talk to a religious man. That's just me. That's who I'd rather hang out with. You know what? If you are what you are and you're a sinner and you're a sinner and you're honest about being a sinner, you're not even a hypocritical sinner, I'd rather hang out with you than a religious person, because it's just be yourself, be who you are, because look, we're all, according to the Bible, we're all just wretched, okay? We're all just an absolute disaster, okay? And only God can change that. And only He can change that. We can preach to the end of time, but unless God changes, nothing changes. So I told you I wasn't going to preach at you, so I'm not going to get too far into that. My point, though, about the music is, is these people are saying that we're going to hell for listening to songs about Jesus. So it made no sense to my dad. So he stood up for us, and he protected us, and and he welcomed the Christian music into the home. So one day my dad comes home with this record, this one right here. See it? Larry Norman, In Another Land. Okay, this is on the Solid Rock label. You see that right there? You see the logo? Well, if you study the history of that logo actually was created before the Rolling Stones' tongue. A lot of people say, well, Larry copied the tongue, and maybe he did, okay? but doubtful, because he can trace it back to the pre-Rolling Stones tongue. You know, and these records, they were just a cut above what any other Christian artists were doing. Most Christian artists were doing gospel music, okay? Well, this was rock and roll, okay? And it always come in a gatefold with lyrics, and then not only lyrics, but just liner notes about some of the things that were going on while the record was being made. And then in the record, a lot of times, there would be an insert, and it was an interview, okay? And it had information about the artists that he was working with, and the music and the album. And some people say that the interviews were fake, that he was the reporter and the guy that was answering. And I say maybe he was, but that's genius if you think about it, because it gives him a way to talk about certain subjects. He's controlling the subjects, and he's getting information out. Okay, this is before the internet. This is before YouTube. This is before any of those things. So he's able to get this information out to the people through the records in the form of an interview. So that's just the way he put it together. So maybe, you know, maybe he was the reporter and the artist, and maybe not. You know, we don't know for a fact. A lot of rumors surrounding that. If you look Larry Norman up, you'll see there's a lot of rumors about the guy. He invented or created. He created a genre of music. You don't do that without some hate, okay? And he was hated by the world. He was hated by the churches more than he was the world. Most of the pushback that you'll see online about the guy and the rumors and the gossip mostly come from church people. So, you know, there's the label. I mean, how creative is that? Okay, so it already looked different, but then you should have just heard it. You should have just heard it. So imagine being, you know, 13, 14 years old, and you go to church, and you don't even know there's a thing, you don't even know that you can buy church music, okay? Like, you don't know that there's, you know, the Imperials and the Jordanaires, you know, those are the guys that back up Elvis, right? You don't know that you can actually even go buy it, because it's not your thing. That's the generations past. That's great-grandma stuff, you know? And then all of a sudden your dad comes home with this record, and it sounds like this. It's like, whoa, we're not in church anymore. It was the greatest thing. I mean, it was the greatest thing. One of the lyrics in that song is "Wowie Zowie, the cat's got soul," and it's just like, wow. Okay, so that record, you know, some people have their Beatles on Ed Sullivan moment. That's my moment. That's my moment at Christian rock. Now, there was Christian rock in our house before that. We had been introduced to some stuff by my aunt on a compilation record that she had, and we'll talk about that one day. We'll do a show on that. You know, and we had kind of heard a little bit of Larry Norman before that. So there was Christian rock in the house before, but that right there, oh, wow. So now we're out there looking for all his records, and he has a label. It's called Solid Rock. That's the name of the label. And I'm telling you, if you go study Christian rock music, or if you know Christian rock music, I'm telling you right now that at least three of the greatest, I'm going to say maybe four of the greatest Christian rock records ever released in history are on Solid Rock label. You got the Larry Norman In Another Land, you got Danny Lamus Horrendous Disc, you got Randy Stonehill's Welcome to Paradise, and then I'd also put Larry Norman's Something New Under the Sun in there, a blues record, a Christian blues record. Man, nobody's doing that either. But we'll talk about that in another show as well. So anyway, it changed my world. And my dad brought this home. I didn't go find this. I didn't go to the record store. I didn't go shopping. Dad brings this home. And he plays this record. And it just changes everything. So since we're with Larry, here's another one of the records that I took over to my dad's that night. This is Larry Norman's Only Visiting This Planet. This album was actually voted, you know, you look online and you look this up, and it's either one or two. Amy Grant's Age to Age is in there, but it's either voted one or two as the greatest Christian rock record ever made. The problem is Amy Grant was never rock and roll, Larry Norman was. So I guess contemporary Christian music, it's usually either one or two, and pretty much everybody's list, and rightfully so. Okay, so you know, it's just Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music is on this one. You can look that one up. It's just a fabulous song. The Outlaw, probably the greatest song ever written about Jesus. The Outlaw. You should listen to it sometime. You really should. It'll probably change your opinion on the religious Jesus that you think you know. He wasn't really that guy. This record is one that we actually listened to at my dad's that night. He put on side two. Side two has the 6 o'clock news, which is a Vietnam War song. Has the Great American Novel, which has the greatest lyric of any song ever, when Larry says, "I wonder who would lead us if none of us would vote." It's got Pardon Me, which is about a man overstepping some boundaries, but that's the angle it's written from, but that's not the meaning behind it. It's then got Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music on it. Basically, that's asking the question that we were fighting in church all those years. People telling us that what you're doing is sinful, what you're doing is wrong, and you're going to hell for listening to Christian music. And that was Larry's answer song. So that was kind of like our anthem. This version here is the DJ copy, kind of cool. And then it's also got Reader's Digest on it. And if you listen to that one, man, you can change a couple of the dates, and the world hasn't changed. This song was released in 1972. It's 51 years ago. And, there's just a lot of things. Larry was really good at mixing politics, current events, and God's grace into the music. Very good at that. And Reader's Digest is a good example. So, there's a lot of copies of this, a lot of versions of this. But that's the gatefold version. This one, again, as I said, is the DJ copy, and it's on Verve Records. So, yeah, he had a secular label when he released this one. MGM owned Verve at the time. This actually was recorded in a studio where the Beatles and George Martin were recording right next door. A little bit of history on the guy. He was with the band People, who released a song in the 60s called I Love You, which was a top 40 song. So we did listen to that one. That's one of the ones that we listened to with Dad that Friday evening. And Dad listens to the 6 o'clock news, and he says, Larry did good. He really captured the essence of what was going on during those days. And it's kind of cool. So another one by Larry, I'll share this with India, Something New Under the Sun. This is a blues record, and every track on this record has a lyric in it from a secular or commonly known blues song. Again, this was just so ahead of its time. No one was doing Christian rock blues music in 1981. Again, on the Solid Rock record, but released by Fido. By this time, Larry had shut down Solid Rock. He wasn't getting the distribution that he was told he was going to get. The bands, there's internal. I mean, he got so big, so fast, and by his own admission, he wasn't a businessman. He was, he's a musician. He's a rock and roller. And so anyway, he went to Fido, and it was mail order stuff. But this one is, you can see it's Solid Rock with Fido. So it was during the transition. So that's just a couple of Larry Norman records that we took over to Dad's that night, and we didn't listen to Something New Under the Sun. DeGarmo and Key, this is another one that Dad brought home, and this is a great record as well. We're going to save a couple of these for later. I remember his dad was flipping through these. He comes across David and the Giants, and he's like, oh, I forgot about those guys. These guys also were on secular labels in the 60s, and they make some really good rock and roll music. So we don't want to get in trouble, so we're not going to play a lot of these, Steve Camp, we took over there that day. This is his most rock record. We didn't get around to that one. We didn't get around to most of these, I'm going to be honest with you. But we did get around to some of them. Randy Stonehill's The Sky Is Falling, and I will play you a little bit of clip of this one, because we did listen to this one at Dad's that night. And I remember when he brought this one home, and the opening line to the song that I'm just going to sample for you, I can still remember his laugh, just his belly laugh that he'd get sometimes when something was just funny, but also cool to him. Like, it was like, oh, he got it, he got it, but it was humorous. I can remember that laugh, and so we're going to play just a snippet for you. So as you can see, this is also on the Solid Rock record label. This was Randy Stonehill's second release on Solid Rock. Larry's thought was one record per artist. Randy got two in this song. Put your brain in neutral. Turn on the television set. Kick off your shoes and don't worry. Don't worry. They haven't cut the power off yet. No. So yeah, that's Randy Stonehill singing about the Great American Cure. This is just still the Great American Cure today. It's just so crazy how things haven't changed that much. And so there's also a song on this one called "The Teen King," which was written about Glenn Frey, the Eagles. And again, this is a solid rock release. So there's the interview inside that you can read. And Randy talks about watching the Eagles going into the studio every day to record Hotel California, and he wrote The Teen King. So that's another one that we took over to Dad's that night. Took Dion over there. We didn't play this one while we were there that night. Again, I took a lot over there. You know, I didn't know what all we were going to listen to, or even if he was going to be in the mood to listen to music after we got started. But Dad always liked Dion in the 50s and early 60s, and this is probably, in my opinion, his best Christian rock release. Another one we took over there, I took some Petra over there. I remember getting this one for Christmas. Mom and Dad got that one for me for Christmas. And then they also, did I take the other one? No, I did not. Okay, so anyway, Petra had a Not of This World one that I also got for Christmas. I didn't take that one. Oh, no, it is in here. It is in here. So yeah, this one I got for Christmas, 1984. There's a video somewhere of me opening this record, and that's pretty cool. We didn't get around to that one either, though. Steve Taylor's Meltdown, one of the first full-length Christian music videos, so I'm going to tell you another story on that one. So, Dad supported us, you know, in the music, and he brought the stuff home. Sometimes he'd bring it home. We'd go out, we'd buy stuff. You know, again, no YouTube, no internet, no Christian radio. So you bought this stuff based on things you knew, okay? And when I say that, Star Song label, that's Petra. Star Song label, you knew that most of the records had rock and roll on it. You knew that Petra was really good. So you would buy, you know, and then look at the artwork, okay? You'd buy based off appearance. You would. You know, and then this one, as you can see on here, it says right there, see that? Shelley's. This was my little sister's. Yes, my little sister's record. But to tell you the story on that one, so I got a job as a DJ on a Monday nights at a roller skating rink doing the first Christian rock music night in the Detroit metropolitan area. And I mention that because they had it set up to play videos, because, you know, this is, MTV was huge. You know, MTV is still playing all kinds of music videos, so they had it set up with VHS. So I would sit up all hours of the night and record music videos on some of the late night Christian cable channels, because they would play them, and there was a couple of shows that would come on, real videos, you know, come on late at night. But then Dad would do that as well. Well, also the church that we were at had satellite, had the big satellite, okay? And Dad would get music videos for me off of the satellite. He'd go at the church and he'd sit there and he'd record music videos for me off of the satellite. So anyway, just cool stuff. Now the Steve Taylor video, you actually could buy that back in the day. You could buy that on a VHS single. How cool is that? Steve Taylor was also, you know, he came out in the 80s, so he came out after the 70s push of Christian rock and Larry Norman, but he also was very much ahead of his time. The other Randy Stonehill record, we didn't get to this one, but this is actually my favorite. I just think this is just a phenomenal record. Keep Me Running is probably one of the top 3 songs ever written. Mark Hurd's Victims of the Age, we took that one over there. I'm just showing you the ones I took over there, but we're going to get to a couple other ones that we did play. We didn't get to this one either. That one, as you can see, has my mom's name on it. Yes, Mom and Dad gave me all the records. I was the record keeper. That's what my dad always called me, the keeper of the records. DeGarmo Key, so there's a story to this one. We didn't get to play this one, but there's a story to that one. That tour came through Detroit, Cobo Arena. DC Talk was the opening group, and at this time they were just a 3-piece rap group, you know, playing to tracks. They didn't even have band behind them. And we went, and, you know, the church that we went with, when the rap music started, the pastor's wife said, we got to go. This is wrong. This is wrong. We got to go. We got to go. Well, my wife and I, we were already married at the time. We drove ourselves. So we didn't go. And we kept a couple kids behind with us that had rode with us, and well, needless to say, and I'm not proud of this. I'm not proud of this, but I'm proud of my dad, and I'm thankful for my dad, because they asked us to actually leave the church over that, and we did. I don't know that Mom and Dad did, but we did. My wife and I didn't go back for probably 20 years, honestly. But that was religion, and then later in life, God showed me that, hey, stop following people and start following me, because people could be really, really wrong. But Dad stood up for us. We're married, we're moved out, we're on our own. He stood up for us. He still stood up for us. Okay, so we got Mylon Lefevre. We didn't play that one that night. That's probably his best record as well. These guys right here, Malcolm and Allen, yeah, that's Beatles, English Beatles sound Just a fantastic, fantastic group. So I'm gonna show you this one. This is Daniel Amos, Horrendous Disc. I took this one over there as well. This was on the Solid Rock Records. Can you see that right there? It's got the disc in the air. I'm gonna play you a clip from that one, and then Daryl Mansfield Band, The Vision. This was had Hard Times. Dad always liked this song, Hard Times. Hard Times are coming. And we did play this one, and he just sat back and he just talked about how he remembered cranking that one to the fullest of volumes when we were kids, and asking me if I remember that. Yeah, Dad, I remember that. Hard times are coming. Daryl Mansfield also released a metal record, so to speak, Revelation, and Dad brought this one home too, based on the album cover. Okay, and I'll play a little clip of this one for you as well. You'd just be like, "Your dad brought that home?" He did. My dad brought that one home. So let's play a couple of those. So we knew who Daniel Amos was prior to this record, and they did. I'm going to call it Eagles type music, Southern rock. Very good records, excellent records. But then we bring this one home, Solid Rock record label, right? Okay, so we're expecting something a little different. And yeah, we got something a little different. Some people even to this day say that is the best release they ever did. And Daniel Amos did a lot of cool stuff. They did country rock, they did this record, then they went into new wave / pop punk in the 80s and then the 90s, and then they went back to the just the regular rock sound, and then the alternative sound, and they've just been all over the gamut. Terry Taylor is a genius. They're good stuff. If you're new to Christian rock music, look them up, because they probably made a genre of music somewhere along the line that you will like. So I get home from school one day, and Dad had already bought this, and he'd already played it. Daryl Mansfield, Revelation. And he's like, "Hey, David, Daryl Mansfield's got a new record out. Take a listen." And he drops a needle, and I swear he put it on 10. Yeah, he wore this one out. You hear those crackles? You hear those pops? He wore this one out. So it has a really, really long intro. Really long intro. But listen to that. So yeah, normally when you're a kid, it's turn that music down, young man. My dad coming home with this kind of music and turning it up and saying, "Hey, do you like this?" Oh, great memories. Such great memories. Yeah. One of the greatest groups of Christian rock right there, Daryl Mansfield Band. So I'm not playing the full song because I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't really know how that works on YouTube, and I don't want to get in trouble. But the music is the story here, so hopefully YouTube lets me post this, and you guys get to hear a little bit of what the story that I'm trying to tell you. So prior to the album I just played you by Daryl Mansfield, this was the release that had come out prior to that. Let's see how good I can drop a needle. This whole record is a great record, but this was Dad's song right here. This was Dad's song. Nope, I'm wrong. I did not drop the needle properly. Okay, this was Dad's song. Well, we're not dropping the needle so good. Ours aren't as good as they used to be. Here we go, that's it. There's a new wave coming. It's no ordinary smell. So we would just crank this record. There's a song in here called Radio. That was my favorite song. No More Blues is on here. Hard Times, Daryl Mansfield. Hard times are coming. Dad loved that song. He played that song. He played it loud. He played it all the time. He played it that night. Hearing the stories was so cool because when I was a little boy, I would go over to that same grandma's house, and she let me play her records. Well, she had gospel records, okay? Statler Brothers, Oak Ridge Boys,
Guys like that, right? But she had Elvis, and she had Jimmy Swaggart. Now, Jimmy Swaggart can sing a gospel song, but Jimmy Swaggart can also sing a honky tonk song. He's not Jerry Lee Lewis's cousin for no reason. And as a kid that didn't know anything, it just sounded different. Jimmy Swaggart, some of his songs just sounded different. And Elvis, all of his songs sounded different. And that's what my ear was drawn to, and that's what I was in tune to, and that's what I would play and play and play over and play over and play over. And then to find out that my dad grew up in the same, not the same house, but with the same lady, with the same just amazing, absolutely amazing woman, listening to the same record, probably the same record, probably this record, because this is an original, this is going way back. That was just really cool, it was really cool. And you know, he'd close his eyes and he would, then he'd open them as he's sitting there in his chair, and you know he's not doing good. And he'd close his eyes and he'd open his eyes and he'd rub them because he'd cry a little bit. He'd just start telling me stories about things that he remembered to the soundtrack of his record. And I don't even know why I took that record, because we were supposed to go over there and listen to Christian rock, right? But I did. And remember, I went to his house. So the 20 I had, I think there's 20 there. That's the 20 we had for the night. And I took that one. Pretty cool stuff. So that's a long video tonight. A little choppy, but I'm trying to play a little bit of the songs for you and let you hear what we heard. You know, during their day, this stuff was every bit as good as anything that was being released on the radio. It rocked, you know. Being a Christian is not cool, but it made it cool, but that makes sense. You know, it's not about being cool or not being cool. You know, everybody tries to make Jesus cool. Everybody tries to sell Jesus. You know, Jesus is the number 2 marketing plan in the world next to sex. You sell, you know, you use sex to sell, you use Jesus to sell. I mean, there's other ways, but that's number 1 and 2. I mean, that's just, there's more money in those 2 marketing plans than anything, you know, but Jesus doesn't need to be sold. You know, he doesn't need a marketing program. If you're trying to sell something, and the only way you can get it to sell is if you tag the Christian label on it, are you selling out? I mean, think about it. Isn't that kind of cheap? That's not what this video is about, so let's not get onto that. The point I'm trying to make is Dad stood up for the music, but he also did that in our whole lives. It was don't follow the crowd, whether it be the drug crowd, the drinking crowd, the disobeying, getting into trouble, beanies, doing things that are bad crowd, skipping school crowd, or even the religious crowd. Don't follow the crowd. That's something that he always taught us, and it's probably made me who I am. And that's not always a good thing, because sometimes you get in trouble not following the crowd. Sometimes you don't get the promotion, sometimes you don't get the job, sometimes you don't get the friend. And a lot of times that relates to you don't get the paycheck. But I sleep at night without issue. I know who I am, I know what I believe, I know why I believe it, and that's way more important than what do you believe is important, but why is way more important. Have you tested it? Have you found it to be true in your innermost inner beings? Something else Dad always taught me. He taught us to, when we did read the Bible, just read what it says. Don't turn it into something it's not. Just read what it says. A lot of things in there get thrown around every day. Every day gets thrown around. Social media, the news, pulpits. It's not even in the book. It's not even what it says. Just read it for what it says, you know. And the music, man, he loved the music. Elvis, Buddy Holly, CCR. He used to take the grandkids and set them on his knee when he was watching during the day. His great-grandkids, my grandkids, and play Creedence for him. And he's like, David, Nolan really likes Creedence. Or no, Hudson really likes Creedence. Nolan really likes the Eagles. You know, and it's just, music was always there. Come home from school, Mom's got Waylon Jennings blaring. Dad have a day off in Boston, or Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street, just blaring. Rolling Stones, you know. Fleetwood Mac, to this day, when I hear certain Fleetwood Mac songs and Journey Lights, I think about the first time we took a family vacation. Just music was always a part of my life. And it was because of my dad. So basically I'm doing this channel right now because of the things that my dad taught me. And I miss him dearly, but that's really, really cool. And I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. And I'm going to get a little bit more personal with you here. If things ain't right with your dad, just have a moment. You ain't going to fix it all. And it ain't all going to get fixed in one. Okay? It don't work that way. Okay? But have a moment today. Just take a moment on Father's Day and have a moment. If it's as simple as a text message or an email, you know, a moment. Have a moment. And to those of you that have lost your dads, I'm sure you can feel what I'm feeling. Didn't want this one to be all emotional. I wanted it to be a celebration because, man, the music is awesome. It's just such great music that I was introduced to that so many people missed out on. Like, there's very, very few people, like people that do know this music, they always complain, how come there's no classic Christian rock station? There's no classic Christian rock station. Classic rock outsells today's music, but there's no classic Christian rock records. It's because nobody was listening to it, man. The churches didn't like it. They didn't want it. The radio stations didn't want it. The record labels didn't want it. They had to go out and do their own thing, start their own labels, indie stuff, underground stuff, do concerts, sell them out of the back of vans. You know, there's no money in it, which is what kept it pure. It's what kept it real, and why it's such a different type of form of music than what today's Christian music is. And I'm glad I got to be a part of that, and I thank my dad for that. I thank my dad for introducing it to me, for standing up for me with it, for allowing it in the house, for allowing it to be a part of our lives. I would do a shameless plug here. If you want to hear some of it, Righteous Rock Radio is the radio station that I run. It's 3r-radio.com. We do lots of classic Christian rock on there, but we mix it with a lot of new stuff as well. So we kind of, it's one of those no rules type things. Don't follow the crowd. Yeah, we play pretty much everything. Sunday mornings, you might even hear some Jimmy Swaggart, or maybe some Elvis. Yeah. Might hear Elvis any time of the day, to be honest with you. So if you want to check that out, I do invite you to do so. But anyway, thanks for watching. Probably the longest video we've done yet. But happy Father's Day, and rock the flock. And I'm going to put these records away. I think it's time. I think it's okay to do that. I'll put these records away. We'll see you next time here on the channel.